someone gave you the light.
Oh, yeah?
And you said, I love that you gave me the light. Like, I don't know exactly how long this song is.
You caught me. I was PMSing that night, I guess.
Like,
and my dad afterwards told me, and I think I understand better what he was saying now, but he was like, so you're not much of a talent. You're more of an entertainer. And I remember being like, that's the most insulting thing you could have ever said to me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Life in Bold. My name is Ben Hawes, and I am your wonderful, fabulous, talented host. I'm so excited to have recorded this episode today because we went through a lot of little technical difficulties and challenges, but we ultimately got a really wonderful episode, a really wonderful conversation with the wonderfully talented, I'm saying wonderful a lot because it's all wonderful, Jess Elgene. And Jess Elgene is an improviser and talented musical comedian and actor and just all the above entertainer. I found out about Jess by seeing her at a show called Boys Club at Club Coming about a year ago. And I just basically said I want to be friends with her. And then I DM'd her, we got coffee. And then I've seen her just kind of in the comedy scene. And then I pounced and I said, will you be on my podcast? And she said yes. And now here we are. So I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. We talk about a lot of really important stuff. One of my favorite things we talked about is country music, and just like she's from Texas, and so we were talking about her hometown and her community and country music and kind of hometown pride and like all these different things that like I find exciting to talk about as a songwriter. And I'm so excited to share this conversation. So please welcome to the Life in Bold stage, Jess Elgene. So I really am so excited to have you on Life in Bold. Thanks. Do you know that?
I know, and thank you for having me.
It's so exciting because, well, I've been researching you. So you're a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
You also do characters.
I sure do.
You also do musical comedy.
Well, yeah.
And songs.
Yeah.
What else do you do?
Well, I do improv as well.
Improv.
Yeah. You were selling me short there.
I was selling you short.
No, I do improv. I'm on UCB's Herald Night right now, which
gosh.
is incredibly fun. That's like kind of the reason I moved to New York was the promise of UCB. Someone in college got their grubby little hands on a copy of the UCB improv manual.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's like my first day in New York, I went to UCB. Like it truly was a huge
And when did
North
you move
Star.
to New York?
I moved in July of 2019. Yeah. And I kind of did like a speed run of the UCB curriculum and auditioned for their house teams for the first time ever in March of 2020. And, and I didn't get it, but also in essence, no one did. Yeah, right. Because then COVID hit. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about this podcast so far is that in the first 1 minute that we've been recording, there's been dogs barking, sirens going.
Yeah. We're hitting for the cycle.
We're going New York City podcast for here.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have Jess Elgene on the podcast today. Are you excited?
I'm so excited.
I've been doing the podcast like weekly now, for about 10 weeks.
Wow.
This is not a 10-week-old podcast though. I started it in 2021 and it was called Side Hustle Divas because I was interviewing people who had side hustles and like people who had like businesses and stuff. Yeah. And then I just realized like, I don't want to talk like about how to get more customers. I want to talk about like how to like, you know, better like fulfill yourself and like how to better like be yourself and be authentic and go after what you want and all that stuff.
I love that.
And so it's been really fun to have people on the show who are comedians because that's what that is.
Totally.
In my opinion, like you're growing up and you have some identity or you have some like everybody has some issue growing up. Like I grew up in some kind of household or whatever. Yeah. And then you just grow up and you like go through a journey. And then at some point you're on stage in New York City talking about it or just talking about whatever. Yeah. So I think like having comedians on the show and people who do improv and like just like performers has been so cool because it's just life. It's life in bold. You know what I mean?
Life in bold, baby.
So I want to start with talking about like childhood and like just like who were you as a kid and like what was your biggest gripe?
Ooh. Yeah, you know, I grew up in Midland, Texas, which is a small town in West Texas. Yeah. It's where Friday Night Lights is based on.
And when we first met, I thought it was where Cheaper by the Dozen was filmed.
Yes. So...
Or not filmed, but
based.
took place.
Yeah. No, and I did the same thing. When I saw Cheaper by the Dozen in theaters, I know that one of the kids says, "Dad, can we just go back to Midland?"
Yeah.
And it turns out they were in Michigan. I think he went to go coach for like Michigan State, and they wanted to go back to Midland, Michigan.
Yeah.
Being in Midland, watching that in the theater, I was like, wow, what a nice touch the filmmakers did. I was like, they must have done a take where the kid says the name of every single town where this movie's going to be shown, where it's going to be like, "Dad, can we please go back to Lansing?" You know what I mean? Like,
right. A voiceover,
Yeah, and it was just like, no, it just happens to take place in a place called Midland.
But I've heard you say George Bush is from there.
Yes, George W. Bush is from my hometown.
Bush.
Yeah. His childhood home is like a museum in my hometown. So that's what we grew up around.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know what? I mean, it's got incredible food. It's a big oil town, so there's a very stimulated economy.
Yeah. Was there a lot of pride, like, of the town?
The economy's really good.
Yeah, the economy is booming.
Which is what I cared about as a child. Yeah.
Thanks to George Bush.
Thank you, Dub.
Yeah. Well, were you like, I grew up in a town where there was a lot of like pride for my town. Like we were kind of a small town also, and all the people in the town were like really proud that we were a small town and that we like functioned as a small town, and like we had like, you know, one high school that everybody went to and stuff like that. Was it like that in Midland?
So yeah, Midland is a deceptively small town because it's like, it's actually literally a city. Like it's like, I think the 14th largest city in Texas.
Really? Oh yeah.
Which, you know, Texas is a huge state.
Yeah.
So, and 14th largest is not gigantic, but it's like over 100,000 people in Midland. And then Odessa, the one town over, which is like the more direct Friday Night Lights thing. If there's any purists watching. That also has like 100,000 people. So it's like its own little metroplex with 250,000 people. So it's not tiny. It's not like everyone knows everyone. And there were multiple high schools in my town and all that.
Yeah.
But I think people did have a sense of pride over like West Texas. It's also not really close to any other like cities in Texas. Like it's called Midland because it's the midpoint between El Paso and Fort Worth. So it's kind of in this little no man's land. And I was more among the group of people who like were writing, you know, Tumblr style poetry about wanting to get out of this small town and go to the big city. So I never felt super prideful about it. And but I think that a lot of people did, for sure.
Was it a lot of country music?
Yeah, definitely a lot of country music and like Americana. And I don't dislike country music at all, actually. And especially like Americana, like Robert Earl Keen is this country artist that I love. Like he's like a real storyteller, like a troubadour proper. And so I was exposed to a lot of music that was like, traveling with just like the guitar on your back type characters that I do kind of keep with me in my like actual like serious music as well.
I grew up in Northern California, and a lot of times people are surprised that so many people there like country music. Yeah. I think people think, oh, California, it's like, I don't know, so liberal or whatever. Totally. But like there's a lot of country music happening in Northern California. And my parent, that was like the kind of, I feel like that was the like appropriate music that I was allowed to listen to. Yeah. And I saw it was all about Shania Twain and Tim McGraw and like Kenny Chesney and like all these people growing up. And as a songwriter now, because I do musical comedy, and I look to country more than any other genre for like, there's a few reasons. The storytelling is definitely a huge part of the DNA in country music. But also from a comedy perspective, there's a lot of country music that's could be arguably just like comedy music.
Totally. Yeah. Like, a lot of the music that I play is not like comedic, but it is like cheeky or whatever. And it's like, I think that often, exactly what you're saying. Like the line between a comedic song and just a really well written, like, story song is almost invisible.
I always think about like a lot of Brad Paisley songs are really comedy, you know, like his song about like leaving his woman for fishing or whatever. The way that song builds until the chorus is my like total blueprint for all my songs. Like so I want to give details and context and whatever, and then right before the chorus I want to say like a little pre-punchline, and then bam, the chorus is like shout it from the rooftop like punchline. And
I think like music in general, like people say that every rock star wants to be a comedian and every comedian wants to be a rock star. It's it makes sense. Like it's like the two kinds of people who want to kind of manipulate in a neutral way, manipulate the audience's emotions. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to make you scream exactly at the right time. I want to like dangle this little carrot of this joke or song in front of you, and then, you know, make you cry or laugh really hard. And I think there is like a very intertwined thing between the two.
Did you put on shows for your family as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I started doing like theater proper in like 8th grade.
Okay.
And like in the school play, I was cast in a play called Orphan Trains. And
it was called Orphan Trains?
Yeah, Orphan Trains. Yeah. It was about kids like right when like very like Ellis Island coded. And like all these orphans would come over to America, and so I played like 3 different roles. I was like helping kids get adopted. I was adopting kids, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of media for kids about being an orphan.
There really is. It's like you need to be prepared. Yeah.
Like there's Oliver,
Annie, of course, which I did in high school.
You played Annie?
I didn't play Annie, but I was in Annie.
Now you should.
Now I should. Now we should do a subversive,
adult, like
all adult production of Annie. That could be fun.
That would be really good. I think.
Yeah. No, you're right. There's a lot of orphan rep,
interesting,
which is good.
And like all the Disney, like everybody has a dead parent in the Disney movies.
Yeah, pretty morose actually.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking,
I guess
about
it's
it.
like I guess maybe all the parent industry, big parent wants kids to appreciate that they have parents.
Oh, that is what it is.
You know what I mean?
Saying, well, you know what? It could be worse.
It could be worse. I could be dead.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Big parent.
We're making like astute observations on Life in Bold.
Yeah, we kind of understand everything.
Yeah. Well, so you started doing theater in 8th grade, and I'm always jealous of that. I did a little bit of school play stuff in like elementary school. Like when there was a school play, I would be in it, like because it was in my class, and like I remember I would like always kind of get like the big part kind of thing, like as a 2nd grader. Like I remember we did a play about Thanksgiving, and it was this girl, I guess she was the big part, but like in my mind I was the big part, because basically this girl doesn't want turkey for Thanksgiving, and her parents, I guess she like, in my mind, she like gets in a fight with her parents, and she goes out to the backyard and is like thinking about what kind of food she wants for Thanksgiving. And so like a tomato comes up to her.
Wow.
And I'm just imagining like that whoever wrote this is extremely high.
You're
like,
so right.
A tomato came up to her and is like, do you want me for Thanksgiving? And she's like, no. And then like cheese comes up to her and she's like, no.
Wow.
And then like, pepperoni comes up to her. And then at the end, a big pizza comes up and she's like, yes. And I was the big pizza.
You're the thing everyone wants.
I was what everybody wanted in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like in plays like that. And then I remember when I was in like 4th or maybe 5th grade, we did Oliver. Is it Oliver Twist? Is that what it's called?
I think those are maybe 2 separate
What's
things.
the one? There's Oliver.
Oliver, yeah.
It's just called one. Oliver. Is the orphan one. Okay.
Yes, with an exclamation point.
Yeah, okay. So we did that, and I obviously auditioned for Oliver, but my music teacher told my mom that she feels like I get too many opportunities at the school, and so I just had to play some other character. But I don't know. Like and so then
let a star shine,
Literally. And then when I was in junior high, I don't think I joined the showbiz stuff because I started to get called gay, and
which you famously aren't.
Yeah, and I'm straight.
Yeah.
And have you seen that clip of Joe Hedges or whatever his name is?
Yeah.
And he's like, anonymous asked my orientation, which is straight, which is like, we've already gone over that. Like, that's dead and gone.
Anyway, my favorite movie is Confessions of a Shopaholic. Yeah.
He's so funny. A few friends from high school have sent that to me and be like, this is absolutely you.
Yeah, I would do like anonymous like Ask FM stuff or whatever. And like no one would ever ask me questions, so I would just like ask myself like, are you trans or whatever?
Oh,
and I would be like, what? Like I literally like wanted to start rumors about myself to kind of expedite.
I feel like in junior high, I just, kind of like, as people do a lot of times in junior high, they're just like, I'm gonna play it safe a little bit. And then I literally remember in 8th grade, we would have the extravaganza, which is like basically a talent show. and it didn't even like cross my mind to join, even though I am very talented and I would have won.
Of course.
And then in high school, I started to come out of my shell a little bit and like be myself a little bit more. But I'm always envious of people who got into theater or chorus or choir or whatever, like in high school, and have, I don't know, like have a little bit more training and as a class every day.
Yeah.
As an adult, what kind of class do you go to every day? You know, like you can, go to improv classes and stuff like that, but like it's interesting as a student of a high school to be in like choir every day, or band or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, I also was in like athletics and stuff, and I'm like so jealous of my past self having literally, like, albeit a bad one, I'm sure, a personal trainer like telling me to work out every single day, like a coach just yelling at everyone. Like I'm sure they weren't like the most competent necessarily, but like I don't have anyone. If I want to work out today, it's like I have to decide that or spend a crazy amount of money getting someone to do that. So it's like for free, you just have someone. I mean, I wish I had like my adult brain as a child being like, no, you should really establish like some discipline and really appreciate these singing lessons, these acting lessons, these workout sessions that you're getting for free.
That is really, I think that's really astute.
And it's
that's
like,
the word of the day today, astute.
And obviously I wasn't going to take it seriously. It's like, you want to skip reps, you want to do all that. But I mean, it's like, it's really interesting just like foundationally, like, I know like how to like act on stage or whatever and all that stuff. But like, I was also jealous, but I think a huge part of my thing is like, I was just jealous that I wasn't in like LA or New York, you know what I mean? Already as a child, and or even like the Dallas Fort Worth.
Did you want to be like a Disney star?
Oh yeah, totally. I submitted. I like went to like those pyramid scheme like fake Disney auditions all the time. And one time I got my parents to like invest in one, and they spent like $2,000 on like, oh yeah, these acting classes, whatever, and then you're gonna do a big showcase. And it's like, that's fake. Like and it's honestly, I don't know, it's pretty disgusting. Like there's like a full like side industry made up entirely of like people lying to vulnerable groups who are like who want to be a star, you know what I mean? And I'm like very grateful to my parents for having invested in that way, and like how could they have possibly seen through it? And I was so hell-bent on doing that thing, that they're like, well, this is the only time that's come through Midland, so I guess we'll do it. And so I was always jealous, and even like in college, which I went to a phenomenal acting program at TCU, Texas Christian University, but like but I remember always being like, just proximity to major things makes a difference. Like I just so many people go to NYU and then drop out because they book a Broadway show.
Right.
And the reason is just proximity. Like even if they're discouraged while in class, like from auditioning, they're still gonna go. And then it's like, if you book a Broadway show, like obviously you're gonna take it. And I can't between classes swing by a Broadway audition. You know what I mean?
I know. TCU. And now you're in New York, and like you got the opportunity to come on Life in Bold.
Exactly.
Which is amazing. That would never happen in Midland.
And that's the thing, is like genuinely, like these are just the places where big stuff happens, and it's just like who's around. But like also it's like I probably would have had like too much culture shock if I went straight to New York from Midland.
In college.
And so it's like I got to like experience like kind of a city without being like the city. And not get my priorities like out of whack in terms of like trying to get on Broadway before I'm literally talented enough to sustain it, because how embarrassing would it be to like get a really wonderful opportunity when you're not good yet?
I know.
And so
what was coming up for you at like high school, 8th grade? What was coming up for you gender wise? Like, were you looking at roles, wishing you could have them? Were people holding you back because of your gender? Like, what was coming up as a student of the theater that way?
So I was like still a closeted trans kid at that point, and I was like making sense of it privately. Like I was and I wish I've blocked out so much of it that I wish I could like look back and like actually just be a fly on the wall, like experiencing my own like discovery of transness and stuff online. because so much of it came in the form of like late night searches and like finding like dark web, old stuff that like instead of saying like trans says like sissy, CD, transvestite, whatever, like making it clear like this is a salacious, like secretive thing that you should not be proud of or whatever, and you should only explore privately at 2 a.m. on your little phone screen or whatever. And but because of that, I understood myself, but also understood that I should feel shame about myself, and so I wasn't like sharing it very broadly. And unfortunately too, was pretty easily categorized. Like I fit the male role pretty well. Like I do love sports, so I like played sports, and I could grow a little bit of like facial hair, so I could be like the male lead in the plays and stuff. And, and I date women, and so and I'm primarily only attracted to women and stuff, and so it's like I don't know. Sometimes I've seen trans women who were before coming out presenting as like a very feminine gay guy, and then it was like, oh, that's easier for us to wrap our head around. Now you fit like the kind of like heteronormative idea of a woman that we understand, but like it's like I'm kind of queer any way you slice it, so people really can't wrap their heads around it. And so like I came out to my mom when I was 14, and she was just like she just didn't really understand it. And then when I like broke up with the girl I was dating at that time, she was like, is it because you're gay? And I was like, what? No. And she was conflating gender and sexuality.
Was like, what?
Yeah. And
what?
Hang on.
Wait a second. I can't compute. Like literally.
It literally didn't compute for her. And so, so it was like a thing where I was playing these male leads, and I don't know why it wasn't like. I now in hindsight, like the reason it wasn't more satisfactory was that I was not actually being fulfilled by them. I think. And so it was weird. I wasn't necessarily being boxed in because I wasn't out or anything. And I'm curious like what all of my experiences would have been like had my mom been more understanding and like fully like been like, okay, like let's talk to a doctor, like let's like make sense of like your transness and transition. Because it's like it's really easy to look back on that concept with rose-colored glasses, but I'm sure I would have experienced some pretty intense bullying. Like there wasn't a lot of trans representation, especially at the time.
Like when was this? Are you younger than me? How old are you?
I'm 18. No, so I was a freshman in high school in like 2009.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So 2009, like we didn't know, like Laverne Cox hadn't been like the transgender tipping point. We didn't have Caitlyn Jenner. Like there's all these like mainstream trans people.
But were you like in 2009? Were you like watching a lot of YouTube?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so in high school, so I was in 2009. I was a senior, like kind of junior senior in high school, and I had started my own YouTube channel. Like my YouTube show, and I made videos all the time, and like would be like I'd go home from school and like make a video. It would be like some kind of music video, or they were sketches, but I didn't know what a sketch was at the time.
Totally.
And like I would send them to my friends like on Facebook. I'm like, new video. And I remember one time I made 3 videos in one after school period. Like one like it was like from like I made a video. I'm like very quick and impulsive with like creative stuff.
Totally, got to get it out.
Yeah, and I would be like, got a new video, and one person was like, Ben, you sent a lot of like new video messages. Like, just so you know, it's a lot. And it was just really interesting because I was creating on YouTube, but YouTube was totally a connection to other queer people.
Absolutely.
When I didn't even know I was looking for that. But like at this point, I like had a realization like a year ago that all the YouTubers that I was watching, all queer.
Isn't that fascinating? Like, no, like I was watching all these British YouTubers. Yeah. And like one of my very favorites was named Charlie Is So Cool. Like, you know her?
Yeah.
And she has since come out as a trans woman.
Yeah.
And even like the people.
She was so good too.
Oh, she was incredible. And still is. Yeah. Like, and now she does like a lot of Twitch stuff.
Yes.
And things. Yeah. And the same thing happened like localized, like thinking about my like, pretty conservative high school. I just vibed and connected with certain people for kind of no reason, like an unspoken energy that I shared with certain people. And now I like hardly remember anyone's name from high school and stuff, and I have to look back and be like, wait, what's this person doing now? And I look them up, and they're like queer or like deeply an ally or whatever, and it's like, all the people that I really had a like strong, unspoken, and like seemingly random connection with. Yeah. We all understood each other to be like, this isn't really our place, this town that we're growing up in. And that's not even to necessarily say it's like all bad. Yeah. I'm hoping to do a stadium tour in Midland someday.
Yes,
so I don't want to
but
bash. But
I think that's also something that is so, like with this whole conversation with Beyonce and country and like where's country come from and all that stuff. Like, I'm really fascinated by how, and obviously there's a lot of people in country music and the fandoms and like the industry that are conservative and hateful and stuff like that. Like, absolutely. But some of the messages in country music are so queer. Like, let's get out of this city or this town. Like, let's just drive away. Like, all of that stuff is like, in my opinion, so queer. And like, I'm disappointed that there's not that many more queer country music storytellers, because like it would be so good. And like Orville Peck, do you know him?
Yeah, he's incredible.
Like he does a lot of really good stuff, and like
him and Trixie Mattel's cover of Jackson,
so good.
Yeah.
And did you see
Trixie music is amazing.
So good. Yeah, I think that there's I hope with the whole conversation of not redefining, but like becoming more aware of like really what is country. I hope that more queer people come up and start making country music, because, or even just like crossover stuff, like even with like Post Malone doing country, like not I don't even think
my wife went to high school with Post Malone.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he gay?
No. How dare you?
I would love if Post Malone came out as gay and then started doing country music.
Well, he's doing one of those things.
Yeah.
No, he's a really cool guy. Austin Post.
Have you met him?
And I haven't met him. Haven't had the pleasure yet. But he, was really cool. Actually, my wife Lexi, when she tore her ACL doing a cheer routine. I married a cheerleader. Yeah. She was in a wheelchair temporarily, and she had to go to one of her classes like upstairs, and Austin Post carried her upstairs.
Oh, that's great.
And she used to sell t-shirts for his high school band, Love and Colors.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so he's a really cool guy.
I think so. I will say that when I found out that he was doing more country and he was on Beyonce's album and Taylor Swift's album and whatever, I started paying more attention, and I'm just like such a fan. I'm like, wow.
Exceptionally talented.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's like Casey Musgraves, who's one of my all-time favorites. There's a lot of, I think country is having kind of a renaissance right now. And even like Ethel Cain does not sing country music, but like she has very much like an Americana upbringing and vibe to her music.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. I would love to just see more. Like Orville Peck and Willie Nelson. Did you see their song?
I haven't yet, no.
It's called Cowboys Are Sometimes Fond of Each Other, or
secretly,
something like that.
Yeah. Cowboys are frequently secretly fond of each other.
Yeah.
I know the song.
And I'm like, that's also good. Like, it's
that's an old song too.
Oh, it really is?
Song. Yeah,
I didn't realize that. Yeah. But okay, then that's good for them for bringing it to my attention.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
No, it's like, it's actually, I think it's just getting, and thanks to things like TikTok, it's so much easier to find people, like, because that's a beautiful thing that anytime I'm down on myself, or like, feeling like, oh, my career's not happening fast enough or whatever, I'm just like thinking about my 14-year-old self who worked up the courage to like come out to my mom or whatever, and like really didn't have the means of like understanding what being trans even really was like, or what that could look like. If I found my older self on TikTok, I'd be like, oh my God, I'd be obsessed. I know. Like this, openly trans, like comedian who's cool and like doing fun things and writes music and all this. So it's really cool. And I think that things like TikTok and YouTube have just made it so much easier. And I think that's maybe why certain politicians like don't like TikTok and YouTube. It's because there's power in making people feel like they're alone and freaks.
Right.
When it's like, oh, I'm not alone and I'm not a freak, and like this doesn't make me a bad person or a weirdo or whatever.
Did you create internet content when you were in high school?
Yeah, I put some videos, like I did the talent show in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And this was so funny. The person who won the 7th grade talent show, and I didn't get selected to participate in the 7th grade talent show. The person who won sang "I'm Yours," and so this was kind of like a slam at him in 8th grade in the talent show. I was like, I'm torn between two songs, and so I sang part of "I'm Yours" as like a little jab, which I don't even know why I was like starting beef. Drake and Kendrick style beef in 8th grade. And then I sang part of "Love Story" by Taylor Swift. And then I just sang like an original song instead, which was the plan all along. And my dad afterwards told me, and I think I understand better what he was saying now, but he was like, so you're not much of a talent, you're more of an entertainer. And I remember being like, that's the most insulting thing you could have ever said to me. He's like, well, you didn't win the entertainment show. You know what I mean? Like,
that's really funny. What do you think he, like, now with your understanding, like, what do you think he's just kind of saying, like, what you did was a little bit less conventional or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think like he was saying, like, you're more of like an MC, and like you want to like play with the audience and like make them laugh and get engagement and all that, and it's like you were doing those things successfully. But really, this is a talent show where you come and you sing, and then you sing your thing, and it's good or bad.
He's inside the box a little bit.
Yeah. And so I actually don't necessarily disagree, but at the time I was like, excuse me?
I'm not a talent?
I'm not a talent? You say to me right after the talent show that I just lost?
My dad, this is actually way more recent. I was visiting my dad in February, and somebody texted me from New York and was like, hey, I'm doing a show on the 28th or something, and will you be on it? And I was telling my dad like how excited I am, because I've only been performing in New York on stage and like signing up for things and meeting people for like 2 years. And I've learned to say it that way, because I say, I've only been performing for 2 years, and everybody's like, no, you've been performing forever, but like I've only been like pursuing like New York comedy for like 2 years. And so it's exciting when people start saying like, hey, want to be on my show? And it's like, you're not paying $10, to do 5 minutes, or like you don't have to, whatever. And I was like, I think people really like booking me on their shows. And like what I meant was like, because I'm a musical comedian and I bring in the energy and like whatever. And he was like, why are you just like really reliable? And I was like, no, I'm funny. Like,
I
was like, what do you mean? They're not booking me because I respond to texts. Like,
right. Everybody, there's plenty of people who want stage time. In this town.
It was just kind of a funny, and like, it was just funny in the moment, because he was like, he's so professional and thinks of it as like a job and everything. And to him, the reason people would like booking me is because I'm a good business person or something. But it was just a funny, like, no, Dad, I'm funny. That's why.
That is so funny. Yeah. And it doesn't hurt that you're timely.
No, it's good. Yeah, that's true. He was making a good point, but I was like, no, it's because I'm the next talent of America.
On time. Yeah. That's so funny.
Okay, so you've been I was watching you on another podcast, and you were talking about how you were kind of going back and forth between New York and different places during the pandemic. So like, you said you started performing in New York. You moved in New York and you started on UCB in 2019.
Yeah.
Then the pandemic happens. You're kind of like going back and forth, right?
Yeah. So right when the pandemic hit, my wife had just booked a show at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg in Virginia. And so I was like, oh, you know what? I'm doing a month-to-month Venmo situation. I lived in like a tiny little room under a staircase, Harry Potter style, for real, in deep Brooklyn, that I was paying way too much for.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, I'll take a Greyhound overnight to come see you, and we'll wait out these 2 weeks together while we flatten the curve, and then the curve was not flattened, and she had signed like a 6-month lease, and so we were just like, well, Williamsburg, Virginia is like this beautiful, like, wooded area. We can go on hikes. Like, the only things that you were allowed to do, we had access
outside,
to there. Going on hikes, fostering a puppy, who we now is our dog, Buddy. I'm not cut out to foster dogs. It was within like 24 hours that I was like already sobbing. Like, I can't get this dog back. Like, we're keeping this guy. And yeah, so then we like waited out the 6 months in Williamsburg, and then we were like, well, New York's not really like back just yet. So we went back to Texas.
Yeah.
Not to Midland, but to like the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Is your wife also from Texas?
Yeah, she's from Grapevine, Texas.
Okay.
Which is where she like went to Grapevine High School with Post Malone and all them. Yeah. Yeah, and then it was just like we thought about LA.
Yeah.
But I just love New York.
Yeah.
I think like taking public transportation I'm kind of fascinated by public transportation across the country and how like, I don't know, like I have friends and like family who actually genuinely like rely on public transportation.
Yeah.
And I think that most parts of the country, like we don't respect people who rely on public transportation or understand the experience of someone who relies on public transportation, because like I've been in LA and I'm like standing at the bus stop and the bus just drives past me.
Yes.
Like truly, and that doesn't, as someone who didn't previously use public transportation, that doesn't seem real.
Yeah.
It's like you're lying, like you're late because you did something, and it's like no, sometimes the bus straight up skips you.
Yeah, right.
Or there's traffic or like whatever, or it's just like a route is closed. And so anyway, off my soapbox about public transportation in general.
That's gonna be the only singular clip.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
Jess and Ben talk about public transportation,
which we
for
could.
1 hour.
We really could.
Yeah.
But no, it's really efficient here.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like everyone here is doing something incredible.
Yeah.
And I used to work for like a semester at the University of Michigan, and something that at first annoyed me, but only because I wasn't a part of it. And then when I was invited in, I really started to love was the University of Michigan like breeds excellence. Like no matter what you're doing there, the football team is incredible. The musical theater program is amazing. And every week at the football game, they're like, and here's the, world champion women's diving team. And it's just like, they're just good at everything.
Yeah.
And like that creates a community that's pretty incredible. Because it's just like, I don't even know who you are or what you do, but I know you're the best at it, whatever it is. And there's something kind of similar, not to be snooty, but like in New York, and I don't mean you're the best necessarily at it, but like you're doing it passionately and like you're
striving.
Yeah. And so I think there's like a really cool collective, I don't know, consciousness or something on the train and everything. So the energy in New York is unlike any place I've ever been.
I agree. I think it's when people I have friends in California where I'm from Northern California, and like I have friends who are just kind of waiting for me to move back, and like I get it, like we're friends, you want me to be close, but there's a piece of me that can't explain like what reason I have for staying in New York. Like someone asked me like, why are you still in New York, like what do you have there, and I can't explain it because it's the people like, you could do comedy in San Francisco, or like you could have a you work from home, like you could work from anywhere, like why do you stay in New York? And it's a valid question from their perspective. Totally. I think because they're like, what the hell, like New York is like what
it's expensive,
like, like you live in the stupidest little tiny little apartment, like you spend way too much money on rent, you don't have a car, and I just think like from their perspective they're just like, it's just so different. And I think I don't know, there's a level of like, I think I moved to escape some childhood kind of, just like I just wanted to be away. And also like the vibe here is that of people are trying to make stuff happen, people believe in you, people are like excited about things. It's a buzz, like it really is like something where I can see. I remember I saw you on a train and we were both going to someone's show, like 2 different shows, and we're just both like, oh,
like ships in the night.
And like I just think that's very different from I just imagine if I moved back to Northern California and San Francisco area, I wouldn't live in San Francisco because I don't really like San Francisco that much.
I've never been.
It's good to go, but like I just don't think it's in the way that New York is a city. San Francisco is nothing. Like it's like not like that.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like
I'm not.
I know you're trying not to get canceled, but like I lived in San Francisco for my college years. Like, given I did not live as a 20-something or an adult, like with a job, I didn't do that whole life.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many hills, you probably do need a car. The public transportation in San Francisco is very different than it is here. It's kind of like what people take when they can't drive.
Yeah.
You know, like you would rather drive, but let's just take the public transportation. Like no one's like, I actually know someone who is really passionate about public transportation in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And it's so out of character for the area. But like, I just think in New York, it's just a totally different vibe. And that's all I can say is it's just a different vibe. And now that I'm doing comedy, because I lived here for like 8 years, I stayed throughout the entire pandemic in this apartment. And I like was working at startups and like, you know, jobs and stuff like that. And it was a totally different social life that I had. And like now that I'm doing my photo booth, I have my podcast and I'm doing like comedy, it's buzzing, you know, it's like happening and everybody's doing shit.
Yeah.
This episode of Life in Bold is brought to you by my freaking camera puttering out because I bought a new camera in January and I haven't used it because I've been scared that it wouldn't work. And I have Jess over here on the podcast today and I thought she's a nice person. Like she won't get upset if it like goes out or like has to overheat or whatever. And it did happen today during multiple moments of the podcast where Jess would be saying something very profound and then the camera would go off. That's not okay. So at Sony, get it together, or also send me a help center article where I can figure out how to make sure that doesn't happen. Anyway, here's Jess.
This episode of Life in Bold is brought to you by Straws for Straight Guys. Do you ever wish that you could get your drink just a little bit closer without having to look like you're finally succumbing to your homosexual desires? Our straws look like vaginas, so no one will think you're a little light in the loafers when you're drinking your drink. Cheers.
That was so good. So the first time I ever saw you perform was at that boys club show.
Yes, Nico Carney and Connor Janda.
Yes.
I'm obsessed with them.
And the reason I even went to that show is because I just wanted to go to Club Cumming. I had never been.
It's so great.
So I like looked up the schedule and I saw Boys Club and I was very like attracted to that concept.
Yeah.
Just like it seemed like it was just fucking around with masculinity.
Totally.
And I showed up to the show. I sat in the back and then you came on stage and you did your act and you said something really funny that made me laugh, which was probably not like a joke that you wrote, but like someone gave you the light.
Oh, yeah?
And you said, I love that you gave me the light. Like, I don't know exactly how long this song is.
You caught me. I was PMSing that night, I guess.
Like and it just really made me laugh because as a musical comedian myself, like I totally agree. Like you don't really need to light me the same way you need to light a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
So it was just like of all the things that you said, that was the funniest.
Thank you. I wish it had been one of the jokes I had written.
I know.
But,
no, isn't that how it works,
that's
though?
Yeah, totally. That is funny. No, when someone lights me in the middle of the song, it's like, I mean, I am. This is it. Like,
yeah. Like,
do you want me to stop the song? I'll stop the song.
It's helpful because, like, maybe I'll skip a chorus or something.
Yeah.
Like, maybe.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You know,
I'm always doing that.
Well, how have you? I mean, like, what's your arc been? Like, did you find success early? Like, when you started, like, did you realize, hey, I'm funny and people are booking me?
Yeah. No, I mean, I did some like open mics, like, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And they were about 50-50, like going okay, going poorly. And stand-up was also kind of not my first thought of like a thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to like study acting. And like right when I first moved to New York, I was hitting the ground running with like going to workshops with casting directors and agents and managers and stuff. And they would always go really nicely, but then no one would be like, you know, audition for this movie that I'm casting, or we'd love to send you out on some auditions. And so it just wasn't clicking. And I think for one, I was like, you know, I hadn't transitioned. And so there was some unspoken like lack of authenticity, you know what I mean? Because I wasn't being myself, no matter how talented I was. And that must have just been a thing that people could feel without even being able to pinpoint it.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, when New York had kind of reopened and I moved back, I took an improv class to the Squirrel Theater, which was founded basically from kind of the ashes of UCB, because UCB had temporarily shut down. They're now reopened. And it was a very like queer theater, and they were having a class called Dusting Off the Cobwebs, like a lot of like, back to improv classes. And I formed a team called Wife Swap out of that. And we were doing a lot of shows. It was a really fun team full of talented people. And this girl, Elena, she put me on a show to do a sketch with my friend Sophie. And then Sophie got COVID and couldn't do the sketch anymore, but I had been putting some characters on TikTok, and I was hey, Elena, is there any way I could do a character set? I've never done a character set live before, but I've been putting some stuff on TikTok, and it's been fun. And so she was like, sure. And then I did a character set for the first time in like February of 2022. And I was also at this time doing the main stage show at Asylum NYC under the artistic direction of Alan Clifford, who's an incredible friend of mine now. And that was really cool. Like Asylum, they had this open call for submissions, and I was stoked just to even get an audition for their new main stage show. Yeah. And then getting a call back was like, this is wild. And then being one of the 6 people that was cast was really incredible. Like the cast also included like no skips, like Sydney Duncan, who's an incredible comedian around town, Chloe Trost, who's now on SNL, Jamie Lynn Watson, who I was like starstruck by because she was doing TikTok and stuff, and she's been on like What We Do in the Shadows, Pat Monahan, who's a good friend, Caroline Ulwick, and a few other people like Jesse Ballard, Dejan, like they're like literally, it's an incredible cast of people. And I was doing that weekly show, and we always had a special guest too. Like we got to do a show with Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Yeah. Like it really was like I was thrust into kind of like I'm like a comedian now. You know what I mean? And then Alan came to see me do that character set, and he put me on a cool showcase for like an industry thing. And as a result of seeing me do that character set, and then all of a sudden I was like doing character stuff, and and then talking about the characters in between bits was like, oh, I'm kind of doing stand-up. And then, it was like, oh, what if I did a set where I didn't do any characters and I just talked? And so it's like a pretty organic snowball into like doing stand-up. And now it's really a fun, good problem to have is like when people book me on a show, I'm like, I'd love to do it. What would you like me to do? You know what I mean? Do you want just a stand-up set? Like, and largely it's like, artistic license, do whatever you want. So right now I'm doing like a lot of stuff where I do like 4 or 5 minutes of stand up and then 4 or 5 minutes of characters. As like a nice little mix. And so it's been really fun. And it is, however, the byproduct of like toiling for a very long time. You know what I mean? Like I used to tour the country. I worked in higher education in like fraternity and sorority life. And I would lead like these anti-hazing workshops and all this stuff. Like it was a different life, I think, but a good job that I was doing. But around the country, I was traveling, and I would just Google on my day off whatever town I was in, comedy. And I would go do drop-in improv shows and workshops and an open mic for stand-up and stuff. And so I was like doing that, and I did improv. I was like on a long-form team in college that I helped form, and studied theater and all that. And I was auditioning. Like I was getting up at 5 a.m. every day pre-COVID to go do theater auditions. And like, so it's weird because it feels like it all came together at once, and that's true, but it is also, it all came together at once after a whole lot of years of it not coming together at all. And so it's hard to say that was like a waste of time, or that wasn't, you know what I mean? So it's been really fun. And then, I started doing my solo show, which I'm taking to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year.
Which is so cool.
Yeah, I'm stoked about that.
When is that again? When does that start?
I will be there July 31st through August 20th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wait, that's so long.
I know. I'll be there for 3 weeks. And I'm doing like 2.5 weeks straight.
And what's this show called again?
My show's called Less of a Man.
Okay, it's still, okay. Yeah. I knew Less of a Man, but I wasn't sure if you were doing a new show. Yeah. But you do Less of a Man, which I've seen bits and pieces online and through your performances. But that actually is a really good transition to like what I was thinking about talking about next, which is like your message, thinking about your impact, thinking about your audience. And like, I'm really curious to know, what is your message with your comedy? And do you feel like there is one, or is it really just about laughs?
I'm like working toward it being just about laughs.
Yeah.
And I think that actually when I allow myself to let it just be about laughs, the message that I'm trying to achieve will probably actually be more thoroughly conveyed.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, the one thing, because like I said, it's really easy to look back on coming out at like 14 and then not transitioning and be like, oh, my life would be so much better. But it's like, my life is pretty incredible right now. I live in New York City. I have incredible friends. I'm married to this beautiful, incredible woman named Lexi. And like my life is great. And what's cool too about the life that I have lived is I'm like the first trans person that a lot of people in my life know. Like, I grew up in Midland, Texas. I went to Texas Christian University. I used to work for a fraternity, and I, like, it's just so many people that I know have thought of trans people as like a hypothetical scenario. Yeah, and it's really easy to vote against the rights of a hypothetical scenario. And instead, when it's like, oh, you transitioned and you actually are visibly happier and you're not drinking an entire bottle of wine every night anymore. Yeah. And like, I used to live next door to a Kroger, so I'd go get a little $10 bottle of wine and sip on some Riesling with the boys. Yeah. And try to think about how I wish I wasn't one of the boys. Yeah. But like, like people see like, oh, transitioning like saved your life and made your life so much more beautiful. Yeah. And that's the thing I've been so afraid of and that I've been voting so fearfully against, you know what I mean? And so, that's like, I think the biggest thing is like, I just want people to see, respect, and like love. And
if you can get them to just laugh at you as a person.
Yeah.
Rather than having them feel like you're trying to teach them some kind of lesson, or like, like if they're just like, oh, she's funny.
Right. And it's kind of like, if they're laughing, they're listening. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you can't laugh if you don't get the joke. And so, that's why, like, a lot of my stuff that's about, like, my lived experience as a trans woman, like, I try to make it accessible to people, not as a means of, like, selling myself out, but more so just, like, I want you to get certain parts of why, like, gender is everywhere, and it is dumb, and it is, like, I literally, truly am always quoting George Washington.
What did he say?
He said, institutions were made for men, not men for institutions. Oh. And I think of gender as an institution. Yeah. And so it's like, if gender informs you in a way that like makes you feel good and you like the healthy parts of masculinity or femininity, great. Yeah. But if it is in any way restrictive to you and it like makes you feel like you need to drink a bottle of wine every single night or whatever. Yeah. That's, you are living your life in service of gender, not letting gender serve you. And
oh, cool.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I don't know, George Washington.
Yeah, I think it's funny icon. Because I do rebel against gender a lot. I feel like as a kid there was a lot of messaging of like, you're a boy, so you should do this.
Totally, yeah.
And like, you're a boy, so you shouldn't. That's really what it's more of. Like, you boy or boy, so you shouldn't do this. Right. And I rebelled against gender and talked in college in my 20s and early 30s. Now that I'm 32, like about just how much I hate gender and how whatever. But Florence Freebay was on this. Do you know her?
I don't know her.
She's an improviser, and she was on last week, and she talked
about... I do know her.
Okay. And and I said something like that, and she was like, but also if it's fun. Like, if it's fun to do boy-man things, then like, that's fine too. And it really... I mean, that's the cool thing about this podcast is like, people will say stuff, and I'll be like, oh yeah. Like, sometimes I do like... being a man, right. Like, and kind of like doing things that I personally attribute to being a man, or like, playing with fashion as a guy, totally. Like, it's an interesting thing.
No, that's like been a thing where I'm on this recreational softball team and I have like a bit about it, but I really do. We play on Saturdays and it's the most like life affirming. It is my favorite thing to do is play on the softball team. Yeah. And when I was a little bit less comfortable and confident in my transition, I felt like I would sometimes, and it's also like internalized misogyny and stuff, but I would curb my level of like competitiveness, and I would almost be like, oh, do I really want to be like the trans girl who's really good at softball or whatever, and who like goes really hard? And it's like, Yeah, like, but it's like, and the internalized misogyny part of it is like associating masculinity with like competitive drive and all that. But but I think a lot of people do associate those together, and so it's like, oh, actually, okay, whatever that is, like, let me lean into it because it's really fun to give a shit.
Yeah.
On the field, and I don't know, like, letting yourself fearlessly embrace everything that you do and that you want to do, and like that's developing a sense of self so that you don't have to wonder if anything you do is for anyone else. Like when I was traveling for my like old job, I was by myself the entire time, and so I would always, when I would go to a movie, I would be like, oh, I'm seeing SpongeBob 4D sponge out of water because I want to see SpongeBob 4D sponge out of water, which is really good, by the way.
Yeah, I bet.
You gotta check it out. That's what I'm here to promote.
Yeah.
I'm just a fan, just a big fan.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, if I don't want to see a movie, even if everyone's talking about it, I'm just not gonna go see it.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to just like have a sense of like, no, I play really hard on the softball field because I love to do that.
Yeah.
And
right.
If that's a masculine thing, okay, cool.
Right.
Like, whatever.
Yeah, I think that is like a big realization for me literally in the last 7 days. Like, I think like I'm like, you know what? Like, I do feel that I'm a man, and I do feel that I'm attracted to men, and like maybe there is. I remember in high school, I met in college, I met this guy who was pursuing drag, and he would talk about that, like playing with gender, like you can do drag. You don't have to be like all woman as a drag, like as a drag queen. Like you can play with it and like have a mustache, or like just kind of like have on a suit and tie, like anything. And now I've learned that like you can do anything in drag.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're born naked and the rest is drag, honey.
That's it. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like with gender, it's just, I've been so angry about it because it has been something that caused so much confusion and anger within me. Like as a kid, like I'm like, no, just let me do this thing. Yeah. And don't make a comment about it, I
know. I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to fix my hair, and I asked my mom if I could borrow some of her hairspray. And she was like, well, hairspray is for girls.
Yeah, what the hell?
And it's like, it literally isn't. Yeah. What are you talking about? And like if you've seen the movie Hairspray, it's like it's about everyone, including men, using hairspray.
Yeah,
so
that's
like that's not even really true. Funny. But it was a testament to like everything is gendered. You know what I mean? Yeah. Drinking with a straw is like gay. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, I recently bought straws.
Which is gay.
Yeah, but like my dad was visiting me here like 2 weeks ago, and I said, do you want a straw? And he was like, no.
What?
That's not exactly how he did it, but I just know him really well. But it's like, it was funny because I was like, he does not want a straw because it's not manly, like he has grown up with not drinking out of straws because it looks like a penis or whatever.
And it also doesn't.
Yeah. It also doesn't look like a penis.
No one's like, is that guy giving head over there 3 tables over?
Me drinking out of my straw.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Oh my God. It is so ridiculous, but it is something. As we get older, we can just be like, you know what? I'm just going to do what I want to do. Totally. It's just about me and what I am and who I am.
Yeah.
My gosh. Well, I've really loved this conversation.
I've had an incredible time.
It's been fun, right?
It's been super fun.
We talked about all kinds of things. We had some technical difficulties, but it wasn't too bad, right?
It wasn't bad at all. It didn't even hurt.
For the viewing and listening audience, I've been trying out a new camera. If you're on YouTube, you might see a difference in quality. Hopefully the quality is better.
Even better.
But it's been a little bit annoying to work with. So it's fine though, because we're living our lives in bold, and part of being bold is choosing challenge.
Totally. So Sony, consider yourselves called out. Your camera puttered out twice.
Yeah, it puttered out. So where can people find you? Like, what do you want people to do to support you? Should they go to your big show in Edinburgh?
If you're going to be in Edinburgh, Scotland in August, I would love for you to come see my show, Less of a Man.
Yeah.
At the Space UK. I also have a monthly show called Hail Mary.
That's why I was like, because I saw Hail Mary and I was like, is that the show you're doing? But no.
Oh, no. That's my monthly stand-up show. It's really incredible. We've been fortunate to get some wonderful guests
Yeah.
so far. And yeah, I do some UCB comedy most weeks and just all over New York City. And I try to do some stuff out of town. DM me, let me know if you want me to come to your town.
Yeah.
But you can follow me on socials at Jess_Elgene. And it's just a genuine pleasure to get to do comedy and engage with people in a meaningful way.
Yeah. And you should follow Jess because you're putting out good stuff.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, especially TikTok.
Well, somebody's got to do it.
You're making content.
I am making content. I always go to live shows and people are like, Jess, these reels.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry.
I know.
I have to do it.
I did a show on Friday in Queens, and someone came up to me and he was like, I really like your Instagram. Like, you're actually making content. So that's my new thing is like, you're making content.
You're really making content. Yeah, I know. It's I love content.
Yeah, I love content. And you can follow our content on the podcast, on our Instagram and our TikTok at Life in Bold Pod. And you can follow me, Ben Hawes, your host, your hot host, on Instagram and TikTok at Laugh with Ben. And you can definitely subscribe if you're here on YouTube or if you're on Spotify or Apple. We're trying to grow the podcast if you can't tell. So I would really appreciate if you would like subscribe, because that definitely makes me very excited to see when someone subscribes on YouTube or Spotify or Apple. And we love that you're listening. We love that you're here. And we hope you have a great day, an even better week. And do not forget to live your life in bold. Thank you.
Thank you.